Hey, it's great to have you guys here, and this is a conversation I've been looking forward to having with both of you. I love talking film in Wisconsin. I love talking to filmmakers who make their home here, and what better way to bring us all together on this Monday night than to talk about this really cool process that's going on with Action Wisconsin, and you guys working hard to bring film incentives here to Wisconsin. Let's start and jump in right there. Where are things at right now, Jeff? Since you're at a disadvantage, since you're on the stream, let's start with you.
Okay. So just in case your audience doesn't know, so Wisconsin is one of 13 states that does not offer production incentives, and it is one of only 3 states that does not have a designated film office. And the importance of production incentives, that it's the number one factor that production companies consider when they're choosing a location to film in, right? So oftentimes, if a production company wants to come to Wisconsin to film, their first question is, what are your tax incentives? And when we say, oh, we don't have those, the line goes dead, right? So Nathan and I and a bunch of other people have been working diligently to bring production incentives back. And so bills have been written, one in the Assembly and one in the Senate. They have strong bipartisan support, because really this is not, it's about filmmaking, right? But it's also about creating and retaining jobs. It is about boosting local economies, and it is about promoting tourism in the state. So we have 42 legislators who are co-sponsoring these bills. As I said, it's a big bipartisan group. And Nathan and I have been testifying twice in Madison in front of subcommittees in both the Assembly and the Senate. And both of those subcommittees that we testified in front of, the bills were passed unanimously.
That is great news. You know, it's funny you say this, because I'm sitting here. I love that there's bipartisan support at a time when our country is incredibly polarized. And every night I come on the air and I say I'm talking about things that bring us together: movies, TV, comedy, music, like sports. So it's great that this is a bipartisan bill. And I want to say it was the brainchild of a Republican state senator, or 2 of them. Why did this bill? I mean, we all love movies, but typically, oftentimes the right, Hollywood is like kind of a target of the right. Why are they in favor of the incentives, and why are Democrats? What brought them together on this?
Because they realize that this is, once again, an economic issue. It's an economic growth issue, and it represents an economic, it's a model and a revenue stream that the state does not have right now. So the 2 authors of the bills, there's Senator Julian Bradley from New Berlin, and before he was a rock star legislator, he was a professional wrestler. So he understands not only the economics of entertainment, but also just how to kind of build strong support among his colleagues for this issue. And then on the Assembly, there was David Armstrong from Rice Lake, and Representative Armstrong is the executive director of the Barron County Economic Development Corporation. So this is somebody who really understands what his constituents want and what would make this state grow economically. And you know, because that's kind of what he does. So they both realized that this was a great economic building block for the state.
Nathan, on the website, it says there's a 30% tax credit that will be issued. Is that in the form of a rebate? What does that mean exactly? Or is it something you can write off? How does that work?
I feel like I got a Jeff question with that.
Oh, sorry.
but
listen, I assume you guys are interchangeable.
Go ahead, Nathan, and I'll interrupt you.
Please defer, though.
You know.
Yeah, of course.
I believe we're proposing a transferable tax credit, which can be, once it's given to you, can be resold to a corporation of your choice at a later date. I'll personally probably go to Kohl's or Target or something like that.
So wait a minute. Kohl's Cash counts as film incentives. Am I understanding that correctly?
Did I explain that a little bit right, Jeff?
I don't know about the Kohl's Cash, but more like the 11% rebate at Menards. But yeah.
Okay. Yeah, either one works. That's great. And you guys, please defer to each other, or I'm just trying to keep I feel bad because you're here in person and Jeff's not, but he got 2 questions. Just trying to even the score, guys. I don't want to play favorites.
Well, maybe, I mean, Nathan, talk about your work and why you feel like this is so important. And here's the thing is that Nathan is working out of, people think that this is, what we've discovered with Action Wisconsin is that we built a coalition statewide. This is not a regional issue. It is a statewide issue. And we have met people all over the state who want these production incentives. In fact, because of the way this bill is structured, it's a very Wisconsin-centric program. It will encourage Wisconsin investors to invest in Wisconsin filmmaking and also infrastructure like sound stages. And we're already aware of 2 different individuals who are pushing for production facilities in both Superior in the northern part of the state. I'm going to use my finger to push up in Superior, and then in Kenosha in the southern part of the state. And that's just 2. I also am personally aware of 10 movies that are kind of in holding patterns, waiting to find out if these bills pass because they want to shoot in Wisconsin. But I don't want to interview Nathan, but I'm very, very curious to hear about kind of his experience in Eau Claire.
My guests are Jeff Kurz and Nathan Deming, 2 Wisconsin filmmakers who are actively working to bring film incentives to Wisconsin. Let's do that. I want to get to separate projects that you guys are working with, but I know you're doing. We'll get an update on your project too, with doing 1 month for the year. I think that's so cool. How long would it take? Let's say, you guys have made it over 2 hurdles. Let's say this goes through. How long will it take to bring those 10 projects, so to speak, Jeff here and Nathan, or how long will it take to set up a film office where it's running cohesively and we're actually attracting projects?
Well, if it's passed this year, it'll go into effect in January 2026, right, Jeff?
Correct.
Okay. So any production that's planning ahead now could conceivably start planning for getting those incentives once they start. Like they could start planning production and pre-production for any time after January 2026 and receive those incentives. And I mean, we both have heard of projects that are like, we're not just saying this. There's a lot of people who are interested in shooting in Wisconsin. When we testified before the House Ways and Means Committee, the one thing that everybody had a story about was the kind of the phone call that Jeff described at the beginning, which is somebody was like, hey, I want to film in Wisconsin. I want to film in Rhinelander. I want to film somewhere. Tell me about it. And then they find out there's no tax incentives. There's no film office. And then the phone goes dead. So like there's people who want to film here. And like, if we just get like a lot of things can start to run once we get these incentives in place.
How long before, like, let's say things get up and running or it takes a while. Are you worried that, because some states have pulled back their incentives? I know Michigan did it a few years ago. Are you worried that could happen here? Have you taken the temperature of the general population?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think that through Action Wisconsin, we really have gotten out a large effort for people to contact their legislators. I'm not so concerned about, listen, what I always say about these production incentive programs from state to state is they're like eggs, and everybody likes their eggs cooked a different way. So the way we're cooking our eggs here is it's a very Wisconsin-centric program. Only money paid to Wisconsin residents and only money spent with Wisconsin businesses will count for these tax credits that Nathan was talking about. So there are certain states that have kind of a door wide open policy of, come in here and we will cover all of your expenses. That's not the way this program is designed, and it's designed so that it makes the most sense economically for the state.
That's a great answer. And just to follow up, like, because you only recoup money that's spent in Wisconsin, so you don't want to bring crews in from out of state because that's not valid. So how long will it take before you have crews? Like, let's say you do get a lot of productions come here. Do we have the crews to support that here, or would that happen quickly?
Would you say that's a little bit of the chicken and egg? Like, because we have people here, like, but they need to be allowed to stay here. I mean, We've talked about over and over again this number of, what is it, like 500 film graduates are trained in Wisconsin every year, and then they go and they make money in Chicago. They go and they make money elsewhere. So they don't have a reason to stay, but if we give them a reason to stay, they'll stay here. And there's something happening right now. We've both met people that are moving back right now from LA and New York, because we didn't get to the big picture yet, but LA might be not the source of Hollywood anymore.
Not much going on. And times are changing, probably due in part to COVID and a lot of other stuff. My guests, Jeff Kurz and Nathan Deming. Nathan's in studio. Jeff's on the stream. We're talking about film incentives here in Wisconsin with Action Wisconsin, a great program that looks like it'll pass. We'll talk more about that coming up after this very short break on Nite Lite with Pete Schwaba. You got the Civic Media Radio Network. Nite Lite with Pete Schwaba. I am Pete Schwaba. Great to have you with me on this Monday night as we broadcast statewide here from beautiful downtown Green Bay. And we're talking about something that I find absolutely fascinating with two fascinating guys, and I am a big fan of both of them. Nathan Deming and Jeff Kurz are here. They're both filmmakers and actively trying to pass legislation here in Wisconsin that would enact film incentives and hopefully draw a lot more productions to Wisconsin, because it's funny, you guys. I know you're right. I know there are people that would want to bring their project here. There are people that already shoot here, even though they don't have incentives, just to get, because if you don't have incentives, I guess favors in a way are like incentives. I know when I shot a film here, we got so much help from the community. You kind of have to rely on that, don't you?
Yeah, I think everything made now is made uphill, right? Like Wisconsin actually had like 2 hit independent films in the past year, which is Hundreds of Beavers, which I'm sure some people know, and Green and Gold. Hundreds of Beavers, Jeff knows a little bit about the production of that, but I know that Green and Gold, like that's a movie all about the Packers.
Yeah.
The producers wanted to shoot that in Illinois for the tax incentive. And like, can you imagine the press tour when they would have gone around and been like, oh yeah, we filmed, that's Door County, but really it's like Aurora.
You can't fake authenticity in an indie film, I don't think. I think that's and nothing against Illinois or anywhere else, but you have to shoot that here. You guys, what is there a minimum spending requirement? Like if someone has a movie and they say, well, I have $25,000, can they cash in on the incentives, or does it have to be $1 million? What are you guys angling for?
The minimum spend is actually $100,000, which is a perfectly reasonable amount of money to make a feature film. And by the way, I have had filmmakers say, but what if I only have $75,000? And what my response to that is that if you go back to your investors and say, for another $25,000, we qualify for production incentives. The thing about incentives is that their investors are going to see a return on their investment almost immediately after all the accounting has been done and the credits are sold.
Great answer. Jeff, you have a background. You were a studio executive at Miramax for years, and you've been in Wisconsin for a while now. For people listening, what goes into picking a location? Like, is it typically up to the producers, or do they have a wish list and the studio has to sign off on it? Or does the studio just say right away, we are going to New Mexico or Atlanta because the incentives are best there? Is that a give and take, or even a negotiation for that matter?
Well, it depends on what kind of production you're talking about, right? So for a studio, they're always going to be going where they're going to get the best deal. And if you look at credits for movies, you'll notice that I'm seeing Quebec show up in a lot of credits for movies that I know they didn't shoot there, but they probably did post-production there. And so they're kind of piecemealing these productions together. So that's kind of the way the studios operate. As far as locations go for an independent film, it's really about how can I make this, so I'm based in Milwaukee, right? And I've got a producing partner in New York and another one in London, and I've worked with the BBC and Film 4 in London, but the last 2 features that I made were made here. And it's really all about figuring out what the economics are and how am I going to make, I'm going to have a certain amount of money. How am I going to make my movie with that certain amount of money? And I will tell you that I find that it's less expensive to film in Wisconsin, just because of what Nathan was just saying about, and what you were just saying about all the goodwill that comes along with making a movie here.
You also mentioned at the beginning of the interview, Jeff, about what's going on in Eau Claire, and I'll let Nathan speak to that. You're in that area, and you had a mixer recently. Talk about the success and the interest you got.
We were just talking about, like, I think a cool thing about what like the nice timing of Action Wisconsin and this effort to, I mean, we should have had a film office yesterday, but the next best time is today or whatever, you know. But this has been a really cool opportunity, I think, for filmmakers around the state to find each other and network in a way. I really think regional filmmaking, regional cinema is the future. And it's been so cool to see people connect from around the state. And like, I just threw on a little mixer a few weeks ago. We had a huge turnout and Jeff spoke at it. And like, it was cool to feel like Jeff connecting with them and, you know, Milwaukee connecting with Eau Claire. And I've seen that like around the state the past few months, the amount of enthusiasm there is. You were talking about crew base. We have passionate people here who can easily be trained. Duluth is an amazing example of a town that like within the past 5 years went from having a very small crew base to, through their film office, they trained people to do G&E, to do PA work, to learn set etiquette, like for a pretty low cost. And now they're bringing in a regular pipeline of like Lifetime movies, Hallmark movies. And this fall, they're going to have like a studio movie coming through. Like that's all possible if we just put our energy in the right direction. And we have that too. I mean, Door County just saw, what was the name of it, Jeff? The one that just shot in
Cherry Pie Christmas.
Cherry Pie Christmas. Yeah.
Oh,
so
yeah.
we have like, look, how many Hallmark movies have you seen that are Christmas where you notice that the snow is fake in the background? Like, because it was shot in Santa Clarita, California. We have actual snow here. You know,
I actually
we have
prefer fake snow myself, but
And by the way, what I want to add to that, and Pete, this kind of goes back to something that you had asked about. You said, you know, there are movies being made here in Wisconsin, and that's true, but they are one-off situations. It's not a steady pipeline, and it could be a steady pipeline if we had production incentives. And crews could have steady employment if they went from production to production.
Great point. And you cannot put a price on what it does for tourism. Like I always used to wonder, why is a film office under tourism? Well, it's such a great way to showcase our state. How do you compete? And I know we have to do a break soon, but I'll at least start you guys down this path so you can think of it. Let's say the incentives go through here. We have a beautiful state. In fact, let's get this after the news or after intermission. But think about how do we compete? Minnesota has very aggressive incentives. And if you shoot up in Duluth, you can maximize or you can utilize two of them. You got Illinois. I don't know if Michigan, I think they're coming back. But let's think about that. Like how does Wisconsin take some of those projects away and sell itself compared to the other states? All right. Great discussion. We'll continue it after intermission. Jeff Kurz is here from Milwaukee. Nathan Deming is in studio all the way from Eau Claire, Wisconsin. Beautiful places, both of them, in our lovely state where we should have film incentives. We'll continue the discussion after the news. Kurt Newman of the Bodines is here at 7:35. A great night here at Night Lite, and great to have you with me. Pete Schwaba on the Civic Media Radio Network. Very exciting. I've got two of my pals here tonight talking about film incentives. Jeff Kurz from Milwaukee and Nathan Deming. Where are you? Are you a man without a home? You kind of like, you're LA, but you're also hanging in Eau Claire. You're trying to make all these movies here in Wisconsin. What's going on?
That's definitely pulling me here, is making movies here.
Yeah.
Are we going to have an opportunity to really quickly give our athlete?
Yes, by all means. Yeah, let's.
Nobody said Giannis yet, right?
No, they have not.
Okay, I'm going to go with Giannis for pro.
Okay.
And does anybody remember Ron Dayne for college?
Course, yeah,
I grew up idolizing Ron Dayne. Yeah.
Okay. I did too.
And see, I was going to say the Great Dane too.
Oh, you were? Oh,
the Great Dane. All right, those are both.
He was fun to watch. Yeah, my uncle used to take me to games.
Do you have that moment? Like I remember when I was like 11 years old, growing up in Chicago, and all I wanted to be was a running back because I loved Walter Payton. And then you get to like age 12 and you already realize you have absolutely no shot whatsoever of being a professional running back.
There's a line somewhere.
Something happens.
Well, then you find out, I remember wondering who from around me will go to the NBA, because you wonder that as a kid. And then you look back at the athletes who are in the NBA now, and they're all like, they started like elite training camps at 8 years old or whatever. You're like, okay, none of us had a chance at all.
All right, I want to ask you guys what you're working on too. You're both doing such cool things. I want to get a Deep Woods update from Jeff, and I want to talk to you about your project, making a movie for every month of the year in Wisconsin, which I think is so ambitious and so cool. But I really am curious, like how in Wisconsin, what do we do here to encourage projects to come here as opposed to Minnesota or Illinois or Iowa or wherever? What do you do? How do you do that? How do you sell our state?
I think that starting out, it's going to be incumbent upon people who have some kind of tie to the state to want to come here and make a movie. And so I mentioned at the beginning of the show that I personally know about 10 projects that are kind of in holding patterns to see if these incentives were going to go through. And all of them, well, full transparency, 2 of them are mine. But all of them have some kind of Wisconsin tie. And I think that that's really what's going to set the pace. And Nathan Deming is a prime example of that, right?
Well, we have a marketable identity. I don't like that term, but we have a recognizable identity. I mean, you have to look in the past few years, like up in Eau Claire, we have like a couple regional heroes right now, basically Bon Iver's, Remy Eau Claire, Michael Perry, this novelist. So like we have other areas that artists are like exploding and like attached to the state. People know the state. Charlie Barron's has exploded as one of the only Midwest comedians that's like known nationally, you know. Right. I think that's a huge part of like we have something here, especially in the Northwoods. I mean, I don't know if you remember, was it like 8 years ago now? There was this clown panic. Do you remember this clown panic?
Shot right here, gags.
Well,
right?
that started because of a short film made in Wisconsin, and immediately like just traveled around the world, and like people were talking about being paranoid about clowns. That all just started here, like as like a fever dream in the Northwoods.
Do you guys have, I've been scared of clowns a lot longer than that myself. Do you guys have a certain kind of like, let's say no one has ties to Wisconsin and we're trying to get them to come here. What kind of films typically do you think would find Wisconsin appealing? We have so much. We have cities, lakes, prairies and farms. What kind of production typically do you think would be drawn to us?
I think that it's Nathan. You're probably going to have, you kind of, because you're an active director, right? And I'm a producer. But I really feel like Wisconsin is primed for modestly budgeted movies that could be holiday movies. There's an insatiable appetite for Christmas movies, as Duluth has discovered with some of the movies that they're making. I think that there could be a steady stream of not expensive movies that are kind of geared toward the crew base that we have, our locations. We have beautiful, very quaint towns in Wisconsin that have never been seen on film, right? And so there's an opportunity there for, as Nathan said, like Santa Clarita does not scream like Christmas, right?
Right. I think too, like, I don't know how many films, or at least big budget films, have ever been shot in Door County, but you've got Bayfield. Like, Somewhere in Time was filmed on Mackinac Island, and that's one of my favorite places in the world. It's beautiful. But we have beauty here that really rivals that. Door County, Bayfield, you go west by the Mississippi, all kinds of stuff could be shot there. Apostle Islands.
No, I really want to film something there someday. Yeah. Well, so the New York Times was just doing its like top 100 list. Did you follow that at all? Top 100 films of the 21st century.
I'm not familiar with that.
It's like something. And so basically, one of them was Bridesmaids, which is what I'm leading up to. Bridesmaids set in Milwaukee, filmed in Los Angeles. If you watch it, and there's all these details that are weird, like it's not crazy to have a charming Scottish cop in Wisconsin, but like when you look at the road they're on, everything about it is just like rural
it's like
California.
A 2-lane highway that goes from Milwaukee to Chicago, right?
right. With just all the flora and fauna of California, not Wisconsin. So like you just don't. We're missing authenticity here, and I've talked to artists and writers of like all backgrounds here. I think we're all really frustrated with the fact that for some reason the coasts here Midwest, and they get bored, or it's like we're nothing. They don't hate us, they just think it's not interesting. Right. I think if we get a chance to tell our own stories, we can really show them like we got a lot going on here. We're not just Fargo. We're not
Absolutely. Jeff Kurz and Nathan Deming are my guests, both Wisconsin filmmakers, both with great track records of making movies and being part of movie sets. And we're talking about incentives, but let's move on. Jeff, you did a movie a few years ago called Deep Woods. We talked about it on this show last time you were on. I really enjoyed it. What do you have coming up that you're working on?
Currently, I'm working on a couple projects, including something that interestingly was supposed to shoot in New Jersey, but the filmmaker who I've known for a long time brought it to me and said, can we make this cheaper in Milwaukee? I redid his budget. And he was going to get $600,000 out of the state of New Jersey. And even with that, I was able to get $250,000 out of his budget. So he said, let's do it here. It's got a very nice cast. It's John Cameron Mitchell, Margaret Cho, and Melissa Leo. We are currently talking to financiers, but this is the situation where a very modestly budgeted movie, a real passion project for all three actors who I just mentioned. So that's basically what I'm working on right now.
Great. Well, and you are working. Tell us where you're at with your project, making a film, your year project, which is so cool.
Well, my next film's going to be something else that I'll be coy about. I've got a couple irons in the fire, but yeah, I'm excited to return to that as soon as possible. Maybe shooting it next spring. So
is this the Untitled Pete Schwaba project?
This is the Untitled Pete Schwaba story. Awesome. Yeah, and
it's fascinating.
Yeah. Audiences 0%. No, yeah. So I'm excited to get back to that when I have.
And do you have, like, with March? February was so great.
Nice.
With March, do you have that story? Is that script written? Is it still just an idea? Okay.
Yeah, I have up through June written right now. I'm really excited about the arc I want to bring you on. But I need some incentives, Jeff. I need some.
You and I we're working on it.
And where can people see Deep Woods, Jeff?
Oh, they can't anymore.
What?
Our distributor was called 1091 Pictures, and they were under the umbrella of Chicken Soup for the Soul, which I thought was a very healthy company, but apparently I don't know what happened, but they went bankrupt. So right now we're trying to figure out exactly what to do with that. So but I take that back. Actually, I've heard that you can see this movie on Tubi. So go to Tubi and put in Deep Woods. And
hey, we're all on Tubi.
There you go.
And I always steer people there. I'm like, well, you can watch it here and pay $5, but Tubi's great.
Yeah. We could plug, if we're plugging anything, we could plug that, like, this is an important time for Action Wisconsin, like, people, like, learning about the bill, because although we have, like, we're growing momentum and support among the legislators, like, it's really important still to contact your legislators. So it's just actionwisconsin.org, and then there's a take action button that's like a little pre-filled out thing.
So it's actually actionwi.org, and as Nathan said, there's a button on it that says, first of all, you can read the bills. They are featured on the homepage, and then there's a button that you can. We made it very easy. You click on this button, you put in your name, address, zip code. The names of your reps come up because nobody ever knows what their reps, who their reps are, and then there's a pre-written email that you hit send, and it'll go to them, just asking them for their support.
That was my next question. So very well done.
Sorry.
People can. No, that's great. I'm glad people know where they can go to do that. So let me ask you this, guys. How do you? I know the landscape has changed in terms of, like, what you get. Like, if you don't have a huge star in your film where you get money up front or help finance it or whatever, how do you make your money back? It seems like if you make $1 million or $2 million film, you have to win Sundance. Or if you have a micro budget and you can pull it off and have great production value, you have a better chance of recouping. Where are things at regarding?
This is why I said I think the future is regional cinema. Ask Hundreds of Beavers, ask Green and Gold. Yeah. These are two independent films that made Hundreds of Beavers made $1 million, with a budget of like $150K, and then I think Green and Gold had closer to $1 million, but then made like 2 or 3 times that back. Hundreds of Beavers did it with a tour. I took my film on tour. If I had charged money, I might have made a little money. You know, there's a real appetite, I think, in like approaching audiences directly. Because the other piece of this we didn't mention is that 60% of the theaters in Wisconsin are independently owned. Those theater owners want special events to bring people into, and we're really excited about Green and Gold, and saw like how people turned out again and again and again.
And there's also, you know, what I want to piggyback onto that, because there's, you know, we're living in a time of authenticity. And it used to be that you would see, and we were talking about Bridesmaids and some other movies.
Hey, Jeff, can you hold that? Can you hold that thought? We'll come back. We're going to do a very short break, and we'll have a few more minutes with these guys who are gracious enough to hang out with me tonight here on Nightlight. It's great to have you both, and we will finish up after this very short break. It's Pete Schwaba and Nightlight on the Civic Media Radio Network. Right now, we've got a few more minutes with our current guests, Jeffrey Kurz from Milwaukee and Nathan Deming, two very talented filmmakers here in Wisconsin, trying to get legislation passed so that we can get even more films shot here in Wisconsin and make it economically feasible. Jeff, you were making a point right before the break, and I would love for you to continue with that.
Oh, Yeah, I was just saying that I think that we're living in a time of authenticity, and for so long we've seen films set in Wisconsin that weren't made here, with people who really haven't spent any time here. And I think that, to Nathan's point, if you give the and if you give the people what they want, they'll turn out. And so, not only Green and Gold, there was that recent documentary about the 1982 Brewers during the World Series. I think it's
Just a
called
bit outside.
Just a Bit
Yeah.
Outside. Yeah, exactly right. And I think that it's a combination of giving the people what they want in a kind of a regional atmosphere. If it breaks out, that's fantastic too, right?
Yeah.
And it's also about trying to be as economically prudent as possible in terms of how much a movie costs, right?
Yeah. Boy, I would love to be able to do budgets. Like I finish something or my son will ask me to help him with something. I'm like, I just don't know budgets. You have to know budgets to know what's feasible, right? I mean,
I know how to do budgets, but I'm never correct. I'm always under what I need to spend.
it cost you $4,000 to get here from Eau Claire.
Yeah.
That was a red flag.
Yeah.
I don't know how that happened, but well, this has been great, guys. What are you guys watching? Have you seen any of the big summer blockbusters? I just saw F1 a couple days ago, and I was underwhelmed. But what have you guys been watching?
Jeff, you go first.
So we just started. So I'm a huge Scott Frank fan. So he did Godless and Queen's Gambit for television, but he also wrote Out of Sight, that Steven Soderbergh movie, and he has a new series that's on Netflix called Department Q that's set in Belfast, Ireland.
I'm watching that right now.
Yeah, it's great, right?
It's
we just
great,
started it last night. I really like that. As a palate cleanser, there's this great series called Adults about these 20-somethings living in Brooklyn that's hilariously funny. So that's kind of, and as far as like feature films, loved Ryan Coogler's movie Sinners.
Oh my gosh, that was great. That's my favorite so far this year. And it's funny, I just gave Out of Sight a rewatch about 3 months ago. And why isn't Don Cheadle more of a famous actor? He is so great in he steals that movie for me. Like Clooney's great, he's fine. But man, I love Don Cheadle.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
What about you, buddy? What are you watching?
This weekend, my brother and I binged all the documentaries about Ocean Gate Titan.
Oh, is that the thing that exploded?
The sub that imploded, yeah. We got
That sounds whimsical.
Not
Wait, there's more than one of those?
Oh, there's like 3 of them. The BBC, HBO, and Netflix all made a documentary. So you put them all together and you get something.
I want to know.
And by the way, for those of us who don't have time, which is the best?
The HBO one.
Really?
Okay. Yeah, that was pretty solid. The Netflix one was like lazy. They just like edited together archive footage and we're like, here we go.
Well, if I had $1 million, the last thing I would do would be something life-threatening. Like I've made it. Why am I doing? These guys are insane, right? Jeff, you got a ton of money. You know what I'm talking about, right?
I'm loaded.
What about binge watching? Are you watching? Like you mentioned Department Q. I just started that, and it's just so great. I watched a movie or a show recently that I discovered that came out in 2012 called Line of Duty. I'm back and forth on British. People that watch all the British shows kind of look down their nose at you, even though they live in Freedom, Wisconsin. Like, it's like, okay, I like some of the British stuff, but not all of it. You know what I mean? Like, but this Line of Duty was so good. And it was like the #1 show on BBC Two, and they moved it to BBC One. But there's like 6 seasons over like 10 years, and it is dynamite. I cannot say enough good things about it.
Do you like the
that was it? That,
British
by the way,
Office?
so Line of go ahead. I'm sorry, Nathan, go ahead.
He asked me if I like the American or British Office
based
better.
on what he just
No,
said.
I know. That's a great question, because when I first saw the British Office, 12 episodes, and then they wrapped it up with the Christmas special, I thought, I'm going to boycott whatever America does with this.
Yeah.
But I have changed my thinking. What America does is so much more difficult because we make so many damn episodes. What they did was incredible. Steve Carell is brilliant, and I think it was harder to do what NBC did almost than it was to do with what Ricky Gervais did in BBC. So how's that for an answer?
That's a good answer. They're diagnosing different cultural problems, too.
True.
So, yeah, I got to go with the British one.
That's true. What were you going to say, Jeff?
Oh, I think that I was talking about Line of Duty. That was huge. That was one of those shows that were like people stayed in. When people still did that, they would stay in to watch that.
See, okay, that makes total sense, because I had never heard of this, and I don't even know. I stumbled on it, And they have these great interrogation scenes, but then it was at the end of season 3 where the Kate character all of a sudden is carrying a machine gun and chasing someone down a city street. And I'm like, this show has everything. Like, just when you think it's this cerebral show, they break out this great action. Great stuff. Tell us when we can, we've got about a minute left, guys. When will we have some closure, or when will we find out about the legislation, whether it passed or not?
It's hard to say. So first of all, today was the last day of the spring session for the legislators.
Okay.
So in my mind, I think that, and this is not too far away, I'm thinking that early September, we're gonna get some kind of general vote. But if that's 2 months away. So
right. And you said you liked its chances.
I mean,
Nathan.
it feels good. I mean, we have these legislators behind us, and again, the more we've talked about it, it just seems like generally people are for it, and they just don't know what it is. I mean, I get it. Like, tax incentive policy is a little obscure, but it's just the landscape of filming now. And then the other thing people don't know is the big picture that Hollywood's leaving Hollywood, and they're worried about LA becoming Detroit, which is just bonkers to think about.
Right.
So that's part of the opportunity, because LA's losing jobs, Chicago's gaining jobs, Illinois is gaining jobs, Minnesota.
You can't surf in Detroit. We'll leave it there. Jeff, thank you so much. Nathan, best of luck, you guys. Keep us posted.
Thank you, Pete.
Thank Strangers. You're very welcome. We're coming back with Bodine's founder and frontman Kurt Newman next on Nightlight with Pete Schwaba on the Civic Media Radio Network.